This is the No Excuses Coaching Podcast with Ryan Montes and Alanna Banks, where we discuss the mindset, the attitude, and the strategies of elite coaching. So I found this, hi everyone, No Excuses listeners. I found this Instagram post in the summer, actually, Ryan, and I put this in our little file of things to talk about because I was really intrigued by this list, and we love talking through lists, and I think the listeners like hearing us talk through the list. So, but basically this list is bad self-help, in quotations, ideas. And
Yes.
I think we could have some fun today, just sort of unraveling some of these bad self-help ideas, maybe beliefs that people have as they start their unraveling or start their journey, or, you know, are introduced to becoming more aware of what's going on. And sort of like the caption to this post was that buying into these ideas is a great way to constantly feel like something is deeply wrong with you or your life. And
Okay.
yeah, I thought we could talk about this today and just unravel it a little bit, unpack it, and give our own opinions on it.
Yes. You're really good about finding these like lists and posts, and I know sometimes they come from me too, but the thing that strikes me is whenever you put one of these in our little our joint file of podcast episode topics and stuff, the source is always so obscure, right? Like today's list entitled Bad Self-Help Ideas comes from at C. Ruth Chawla.
She's actually a big Instagram person.
She's a big, so maybe they're just obscure to me and like,
Yeah.
because I don't know. And to everybody else, that's like a household name, C. Ruth Chawla. But anyways, thank you at C. Ruth Chawla on Instagram for sharing your bad self-help ideas. And thank you, Alanna, for bringing them to me so we can talk about them.
Yeah.
Cool.
I
Anyways,
think they're going to be really cool.
just wanted to add that in there.
Mm-hmm.
No filter, right? No excuses. Just
Yeah. No filter.
what comes to mind.
I
Cool.
mean,
All
I
right.
love obscurity. So
Yeah. Although, apparently maybe it's not obscure. Okay. So
no,
these are
it's
bad
not.
self-help ideas, or I guess you might say beliefs that people might adopt that could be dangerous or damaging or push them further away from their goals than closer to them.
Yeah. And just also an add on, I think there are also beliefs that are perpetuated out there in the self help community at times too. You may not come into this world believing this stuff, but then it's almost like part of the dialogue in some
Yeah.
circles of self help, people, coaching, whatever you want
Yeah.
to call it.
Yeah. I did scan through this list, and it makes me kind of grateful for the school of coaching and the school of psychology that we studied with,
Yeah.
because the schools that we came through, the American Board of NLP and, sort of the Tad James School of Psychology, doesn't leave room for this nonsense.
Yeah.
And inoculates people against these things. However, in the greater scheme, in the traditional life coaching, wider industry, these are pervasive, these are common, these are out there. So it's easy for, I think, me and probably you too to take for granted the fact that we don't really encounter these a lot, at least not within ourselves and our little community. And our clients generally don't struggle with these because we wouldn't allow that to take place. Mm-hmm. But these are things that are common.
Yeah.
So,
and to be aware of too.
And to be aware of, especially for coaching.
Yeah. And as a sidebar, before I came into this world, like this little world that you just were explaining, I was in this one that we're going to be talking about. And I, before I met you and before I started studying all of this material, I was deep in healing, like trauma, like sad, and just like peeling the onion and, cocooning, right? And then I got introduced to all of this coaching that is a lot more empowering and helpful. and got rid of all of that stuff. Right. So
Yeah.
I was able to shift. So I'm very aware and very familiar with this world. And it's dangerous. And I've had a lot of conversations. I think even you and I have had conversations about this in the past, but not on the podcast, but it's damaging. It can be very damaging because you just kind of stay in this broken place.
Yeah. Let's get into it.
Yeah, let's get into it.
Enough. What would you call it?
Preamble?
Overture? Enough preamble? That's probably more accurate. Okay. Number one, all difficult feelings must be healed. Well, balderdash. What do you think? Maybe we could just take it because like we've got a bunch of these to get through and probably we're going to have similar reactions to these. Why don't you take this one and I'll take the next one?
Okay.
Unless I want to add something, then I'll add it.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Yeah. All difficult feelings must be healed in quotations. You know, I have an issue. I wouldn't say an issue. Let's say like the word healed bothers me because you're never healed. Like you're never going to be fully healed of like anything that you're going through. I think we're always evolving. We're always changing. We're always shifting into a new awareness and making realizations and reflecting. Like to me, it's very fluid when you're moving through difficult feelings. And I think that, it's not fair to say that you're going to heal that one feeling because then you're just going to shift into another version of that feeling that you're then going to have to work through and so on and so on. So I don't think all difficult feelings must be healed.
Yeah.
I think you have to move through them. You have to feel them. You have to reflect on them and figure them out and learn from them, right? So that's my take on that.
Yeah, I agree. And I will add, I think that the dangerous underlying presupposition under this statement, all difficult feelings must be healed, is that there's good feelings and bad feelings, right?
Yeah.
As opposed to pleasant feelings and unpleasant feelings, which is the more accurate, right? Like feelings of anger and sadness and rage and the feelings of this nature are not bad. They may be unpleasant, but for a well-adjusted person, these are useful feelings, ones that we would never want to get rid of. So there's no such thing as healing a feeling.
No.
Right? There's healing an event maybe of the past, or there's healing an injury, or even if it's an emotional injury. But feelings just are. Right?
Exactly. Like you're not deleting those negative feelings or those difficult feelings because, the law, what is it? The law of opposites, right? Which is a universal law. Like if you feel happy, you are going to feel sad.
Yeah.
You're going to feel all these feelings always. You can't heal them. You can't delete them. You have to move through them.
Cool. Yeah. Neurologically, you cannot perceive of a pleasant feeling if you cannot perceive of an unpleasant feeling, right?
Right.
Cool.
But we're emotionally regulating those feelings, right? And that's what we do through our work, like through timeline therapy. We're helping people get to like what I like to say is kind of like a neutral territory where you're getting rid of unresolved negative feelings to bring you back to like a neutral feeling so that when you like stub your toe, you're not like blowing a gasket, for example, or right? Like you're getting back to just like normal anger or neutral anger, not over the top anger.
Yeah. I mean, the process of going through a timeline therapy techniques, unresolved negative emotions clearing with a trained practitioner is very, very, very life-changing for the majority of people that experience it. And if you want to audience experience that, get in touch with Alanna.
Yeah.
Because she's one of the best. Anyway, all right, let's carry on. Next one on the list here. Excessive self-focus is helpful. The myth that excessive self-focus is helpful. That's an interesting one. Excessive anything. I mean, the word excessive in this statement is probably a dead giveaway that something ain't right. Excessive focus on internal stuff is never going to be good. excessive focus on external validation, for example, is never going to be good. All things in moderation. So a person who is well-rounded and in the routine of moving towards and achieving goals in their life will neither be exclusively focused on what's happening in their subjective environment nor on their internal, state. They'll have an awareness of both, of everything. You want to be aware of what's going inside of you without being obsessed, what's going on inside of you without being obsessed with your, internal monologue. And also you want to be aware of, the measurables, the events that are happening, the results you are getting outside of yourself. So I would agree, excessive self-focus is not helpful. But some level of self-awareness certainly is important.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess the reason this made it to the list is some people might get the idea that they're the problem. And if they're not getting what they want in life, they just have to keep doing more and more work on themselves, more and more personal development, more and more reading self-help books, more and more therapy, more and more this, that, retreats, whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's not always the case, right? Sometimes we're great the way we are, and maybe we just need to take more action. Maybe we need to look upward into the world. Maybe we need to change our environment or circumstances or the people who we surround ourselves with or whatever. That's what comes to mind for me for this one.
Yeah. I'm with you on that. And I think there is this belief that like once you start going down this path, like it's just like you have to keep going, right? And that creates burnout, really, when you're just excessively focusing on yourself and like being better and like reflecting and all this thing. Like you need to stop for a minute and then start integrating the stuff that you're learning into your life. So work with a coach and do some things and then integrate it and then take some time off and then, invest in something else or maybe go on a retreat or, read a book or something like that. But it's just like, if you're in constant like absorption mode, then you're not integrating it. You're not embodying it. You're not reaping the benefits of whatever it is you're learning. You're just learning.
Yeah. Agreed. Cool.
You should always feel good is the next one.
You should always feel good.
I mean, what's wrong with that? I think that there is this narrative out there that you should always be feeling good. And I would caution that anything that says should in it or anything that you read that says you should be doing blah, 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 you need to be very careful because what does that mean? Like, I should always feel good. Why? You kind of want to ask yourself, like, why should I always be feeling good? What if I want to feel sad? What if I want to feel angry? What if I want to feel disappointed? What if these are all good things to feel too. And I think that's a pipe dream to think that you're going to always feel good because it's like I was saying before, there's that law of opposites. So if you're going to feel good, that's great. But if you're going to feel good, then you're going to feel bad too. Happy, you're going to feel sad. Like that's just part of our life here on this planet. Depending on what you believe in, we're having this human experience. And the reason we're here is to learn and grow and evolve and figure things out. This isn't paradise, right? Like this isn't the fifth dimension.
You should always feel good. I think that's a dangerous belief. And because it sets the person up for disappointment or it motivates people to produce behaviors that maybe are not wise. If they believe that it is normal to feel good all the time, you can imagine all the the disempowering things people could do in the pursuit of feeling good all the time. And the opposite is not helpful either, right? Like the tolerance of an abundance of negative states, right, is not good either. Seeking an abundance of exclusively positive states and the tolerance of the abundance of unpleasant states, I should say, is not helpful either, right? I think what we should strive for is to be in emotional states that are appropriate for the circumstances that we're in a given moment, right? If life, around us is good and thriving and we're happy and we're getting the results that we want, probably we're going to feel really good about that. If something goes wrong, or where there's a loss, and probably there's going to be grief or discomfort connected to that, and that's appropriate, right?
Yeah.
So it's not that we want to feel good all the time, or it's not that we want to never feel bad, or it's not that we want to say it's okay to feel bad, because that's a natural human emotion. People can get carried away with that too, right? What we want is to feel appropriate feelings for the circumstances that we're in, right?
Yeah.
And life is in
And
the
for,
context.
I would say also like an appropriate amount of time too.
And for an appropriate amount of time. Yeah.
Whatever that means for you. Like there's no appropriate amount of time that's just subscribed to like grief, for example. Like go through the grief. But when it gets to the point where you're grieving for an inappropriate amount of time, whatever that might mean for you, then that's when you kind of have to check in.
Yeah. Cool.
Because then it gets into like secondary gain, right? Which we talked about a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah. All right. Let's do another one.
I love this next one.
Yes. Okay, I'll say it. All problems come from childhood.
Yeah.
That's the one you were talking about, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, this idea that like, oh, well, I don't feel good, or I can't do this, or I can't do that. Therefore, I need to regress to the root cause when I was a child, when this blah, blah. Like, and that very well could be the solution, but it's not always the solution.
No.
What do you think about this one, Lana?
Yeah, like I would say that it's often the root of whatever you might be going through. Like I'm just thinking off the top of my head, like the clients that I'm working with right now, like, we've gone back to the childhood, but it doesn't, like, sure, that's maybe where it started, but with timeline therapy too, like, and this might sound interesting to some people who haven't experienced this before, but it could be from before you were born. It could be like generational. It could be, something that's just in your cells. And I know that sounds like very interesting probably to some people. It's not always about your childhood. It also, I think there's a huge narrative out there around inner child healing. And while I think inner child healing is so important and it's like very valuable and has its own place, there seems to be, like, I would say people are forgetting about all the other parts that we have inside of us. Like, yeah, we've got the inner child, but we've also got like the inner warrior. We've got the inner teenager. We've got the inner mother. We've got the inner healer. We've got the inner, like, we have so many different parts of us that are just kind of being ignored. And the child is getting a lot of attention, which is great. And it's important. But there are so many other parts of us that need to also be acknowledged, and problems stem from those parts too. So in my opinion, and the way I coach people, as I look at things from like a holistic point of view, and yeah, do we go back to childhood? 100%. And oftentimes do we find root cause there? Almost always. But then there's also areas where you're going to find other root causes. And it's not just about your childhood. It's not that you had bad parents, because I work with a lot of people who have had actually really happy childhoods, and their parents were doing the best they could with what they had. And it was actually something that someone at school might have said to them, or a teacher or something like that. It's not necessarily like this childhood parent problem.
Yeah. Yes. The other thing is, all problems come from childhood implies that all problems have to do with an old, unhelpful program or belief that's still running. And while often that is the case, if we cannot produce a behavior or we cannot get a result that we want to get, often it is the case that there's some old stuff that we would be well advised to resolve so that we can do that. But sometimes it's not that the wrong programs are still running. Sometimes it's just that we've not yet installed the right program, right? Mm-hmm. Like, think about a person who doesn't yet have a driver's license and know how to drive. I mean, there could be some trauma or unpleasantness around vehicles and driving from their childhood that has prevented them from getting their driver's license. Or maybe they just haven't gone and taken driver's ed yet. They haven't installed the new program. It might have nothing to do with their childhood. That's a bit of a silly example to illustrate the point, if you're not getting a result that you want, or you're not producing a behavior, yeah, it might be something needs to be healed. Or you might just need mentorship or guidance or training to produce a new behavior that you haven't produced before. We don't want to lose sight of that fact.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And in addition to that, you can also create like these traumas or whatever, wounds as adults too, like depending on like, I'm specifically thinking about like relationships, but if you're just because I'm like heavily into like research mode for like relationships right now and like all that type of thing, but like you can create wounds within a relationship. So it may not even be anything to do with your childhood, but this dynamic has created a wound that you need to heal. And that doesn't necessarily mean that it came from your childhood. Maybe the root did, or you're allowing something to happen that if that potentially could have happened from your childhood, but like you're creating new wounds all the time.
Yeah, true.
So not all your problems come from your childhood, right? Like I can think of wounds that were created when I worked in corporate. I can think of wounds that were created when I was at university. I can think of wounds that were created, after having children, right?
Yeah.
So it's just like there's lots of areas where you can create problems.
Hear that, folks? There's an infinite sources of problems for you out there. Don't worry. There will be no shortage of problem sources. Yeah, okay. I think we covered that one.
Yeah, we got that one.
All right. The next one, life should feel easy. Life should feel easy.
There's that pesky little word again.
Should.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, should is a dead giveaway that we got a problem, but life should feel easy. I mean, easy is a very relative term. Life should not feel impossible, I would say. And to a lot of people, unfortunately, life feels impossible, right? Mm-hmm. And if that's, if you're a listener and that's the case, I think that's an immediate cause to seek, assistance or help, right? Depending on the degree, never hesitate, right? But if accomplishing your goals more specifically feels impossible, that's a problem. That's a problem, right? Mm-hmm. Because if it's something you want and something you desire, probably it's not impossible. Because we don't tend to actually want things that are literally impossible, right?
Yeah.
Life should feel easy. I mean, it's so relative.
Relative to what? Like, like this one makes me think of, I think what they're trying to say here is life should feel easy is more like, when you do something, like I'm just thinking, for example, like, well, this podcast, right? Like we decided to do it and we went in with the intention that it was going to be easy. And it's never felt complicated. It's never felt like hard work. It's never felt like impossible because we're just approaching it with an attitude of ease, right? Yeah. Like I can think of like projects that were like group projects at school that I've worked on where we just all kind of came together seamlessly and it worked and there was no drama. And, we ended up putting together an amazing group project and got a good grade. Whereas there were other groups that just for whatever reason, it didn't work. So I think it's like looking at your life and seeing like, where am I finding flow? Where are things like coming to me easily? What relationships, what friendships, what like people am I hanging out with where it just feels natural and easy and it doesn't feel forced or complicated? I think that's where you want to like put your attention and then that will feel, then it will feel, bleh. And then it will feel easy because you're probably doing something that you enjoy. You're probably like investing time, energy, money into like something that you like doing. When your life starts feeling impossible and hard and complicated, it's probably because you're doing something that you don't really want to be doing. It's probably something that logically you think, oh, there's that word again, should be doing this. But really my heart is saying, this isn't for me. And it's hard work. When your heart's not in it, it's hard work. Yeah. 99% of the time.
Yeah. I think we can take this statement from being really unhelpful to being really helpful if we just change should to can.
Yeah.
Life can feel easy.
Yeah.
Right? But it's okay if it doesn't sometimes.
Yeah. Like,
we want challenges as humans. We seek challenge.
yeah, because if you're not being challenged, then you're not growing, right? Like you're not moving, you're not evolving, you're not. And there's the law again of opposites. Like if it feels easy, there's going to be moments where it's going to feel challenging.
Yeah.
It's
and
just
vice versa.
yeah, it's just part of the world, part of nature.
Right.
Everyone has trauma. Everyone. There's another pesky word. See, this is like a whole NLP list of
really,
no-nos.
The universal, everyone has trauma. Yeah, I mean, okay, it really depends on your definition of the word trauma.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It really depends.
Well, it is in quotations on this list, to be fair.
On the list, it has it in quotes. Yeah, I think, just making a blanket statement like that, or the assumption that a person needs to heal or address trauma, I think is what this is hinting at. Maybe a person does, maybe they don't. Maybe they're ready for that, maybe they're not. Maybe that's the most efficient means of life quality improvement for them. Maybe it's not, right? But this assumption that, everyone's broken and needs to be fixed is often not helpful, right? Usually not helpful. There's that old saying, like, if all you have is a hammer, everything's going to look like a nail to you, right? If all you have is healing trauma, then every client who comes through, you're going to tell them you got to heal their trauma, right?
Yeah.
And that's probably not ideal, right? Probably not ideal.
Yeah, I don't think you necessarily as a coach want to go into a coaching relationship with someone investigating for trauma. Like, you know what I mean? Like pinpoint, like you just kind of said, like, I don't think that that's helpful. I think you want to get like an overall perspective of what's going on here. And you also have to figure out like, what is the person's goal?
Yeah.
If the person's goal has nothing to do with like some sort of deep trauma, you know what I mean? Or you're really stretching to get to this like trauma, like it's probably not helpful.
Yeah.
I mean, I would argue that everyone does have trauma in quotation marks, because there's like big T trauma, right? Which is like the big stuff that, like abuse or like assault or really scary events that have happened in your life. That's like the big T trauma. And then the little T trauma is like someone looked at you sideways in grade 2 and you made that mean that you're a bad person, right? So
yeah,
like we all have trauma. Does that mean that we need to heal all those little T traumas? I don't think so.
Yeah. I mean, the context that this statement kind of arrives in is very important. Like you could say everyone has trauma and mean it to say like, well, all humans have human experience. Everybody in their life probably has experienced a range of emotions coming from a range of circumstances, and that's normal and natural, right? If that's the explanation that comes along with this, I'd say, yeah, that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
But if we're saying, everyone has deep, unhealed stuff, even if that is really common, we don't want to make assumptions, right?
Right.
Like maybe a client's coming to you and they've done a ton of healing work, right? And they've resolved everything that needs to be resolved, at least, right?
Yeah.
And they're just ready for, future oriented coaching and like training, right? Yeah. This one's a little tricky. This one like almost is worthy of like a whole episode on its own. Mm-hmm. But I mean, I think the listeners at this point in the list especially are getting the idea that like universals, shoulds, grammatically ambiguous terms.
Yeah.
Like trauma.
No definitions, like no defining of.
These things can be either empowering or very dangerous depending on how they're interpreted.
Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Here's another one. Must, right? You must be on a healing journey in quotations.
Yeah. This one might be the most common, pervasive, negative, unhelpful belief in the coaching, personal development world. You must always be healing.
Hmm.
No, why?
Yeah. Then
Right?
you're just in constant like turmoil and sadness.
Well, I mean, again, it depends on what a person's definition of healing is, right? But
Yeah.
I think we should try to maximize the amount of time that we're thriving. I think that the thing that I observe is that people postpone their thriving, they postpone their happiness, they postpone their action because they've determined that they're in a phase of healing,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And then that phase never ends, right? It's just, well, I healed this, now I need to heal this. Now I need to
Yeah.
heal this. It's like this perpetual cycle of I'll start when I'm done fixing all this stuff, right? That's the danger.
Yeah.
You can be constantly healing as long as you're at the same time thriving, enjoying your life, taking action, and doing the things that you want to be doing. Sure,
Hmm.
right? But it's that getting stuck in the client seat forever,
Hmm. Yeah.
right? Getting stuck in the healing mode where we're putting other things on hold, and sometimes yes, healing needs to be 100% of our focus or 98% of our focus. But that can never be or if avoidable, that shouldn't be a permanent state, right? We
Yeah.
want to focus on healing only as much as we need to so that we can go back into living and thriving as our main focus.
Yeah. Like I would almost do away with the word healing
Yeah.
because like we said at the beginning, all difficult feelings must be healed. I mean, I don't think you're healing. I think you're evolving. And
Yeah.
so maybe
Evolving. Yeah.
reframe that you're on this healing journey into I'm on an evolution. I'm
Yeah.
evolving as a human being. I'm becoming more aware every day. Like you could write that into your self-image instead of
Yeah.
I'm on this healing journey. It's so depressive.
Yeah. And I mean, the word healing does have a lot of connotation. If a person needs
Hmm.
healing, does that imply that they're broken?
Broken. Yeah.
When maybe they're not. Maybe they're having a very appropriate reaction and response to events of the past.
Hmm.
And it's not necessarily that they need to heal, it's that they need to complete, the process of experiencing and understanding that past so that they can move into the future. Maybe it's not healing, right?
Yeah. And you could ask yourself, when are things going to be great? When are you going to be thriving? When are you going to be, you know, feeling really good about your situation?
Yeah.
Like
Cool.
start thinking ahead, not like what are you looking forward to?
Yeah. Um, yeah. Again, like inoculation against all of these kind of limiting patterns or beliefs is something that we take for granted when we're coaching through the lens of an NLP trained person, right? Like,
Hmm.
because we have something called the generative model of change in NLP where we never assume that the client is broken or we never assume that the client needs to be fixed. It's just that their system is responding to whatever has happened
Yeah.
to them in their life, and it's probably responding appropriately. And if we want to, we can, the clients, we can teach them how to respond differently
Yeah.
moving
Upgrade
forward,
the system.
upgrade the system or whatever.
Hmm.
Okay, let's tackle that last one.
We
You are
did.
very
That was,
special.
oh, you're very
No,
special.
the
Yeah.
bonus one. The
This is
bonus.
bonus.
I want to talk about this one.
Yeah. Let's talk about it for a second because before we got on here, we were like, do we talk about this one? Because when I looked at it, I was like, do people think they're very special? Is that a belief that people have in this sort of world? I'm
Well,
not
and
sure.
why is that potentially a bad self-help idea? The idea that you are very special.
I mean, aren't we all special?
Yeah, because
Isn't
here's
that
the
what they
thing.
told us in kindergarten?
Here's the thing. You are very like it's true. This is one
Yeah.
that's both true and dangerous at the same time because you're
Yeah.
special. I'm special. Listeners, all of you are very special. Of course you are. Of course. There's no question about that. The question comes, what do you think the word special means, right? And a
Mm.
lot of people in the self-help world or in the personal development world or in the goal attainment world mistakenly think that they're special, meaning what worked for other people will not work for them. This is where I think this belief can get dangerous. I'm special and different.
Yeah.
My traumas are special and different. Therefore, what other people have used to heal won't heal me. My challenges are special and different. Therefore, what other people have found success in, I will not find success in. And this can actually, the belief that a person is special and or different can become an excuse to not get what they want in life, a sneaky excuse.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Everybody else could, but I can't because I'm special. That's where something that is, true and beautiful, every human being is special, becomes disempowering. It goes awry, right? Yeah. At least that's my opinion. So while I agree,
I like that.
You're special, I'm special, we should only ever take that statement and that status of being special in a positive way. If the understanding that I'm special comes to limit me, as it does limit many people, unfortunately, and that's why it made it to the list, I'm confident, then it's a problem.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, because then you're using it to stay in victimhood, basically.
Yeah.
Right? Like you're like, well, I can't be fixed. I'm broken and this is just the way I am. So
yeah,
I'll just
my circumstances are special. Yeah. What works for everybody else won't work for me. That's where there's a problem.
Yeah. Cool. I love it. Yeah. Now it makes sense to me. See?
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. So listeners, you're special and you can be successful in anything that you want to be, most likely. Okay. We got it. That's the whole list.
That's the list.
However many plus a bonus. Anything else to add?
I don't think so. I think the sort of recap of this is really when you're surfing Instagram and you're seeing this stuff, or if you're a coach, just be very mindful of the content that you're putting out there and the words you're using and how you're defining certain parts of what you're talking about. So like using those universal qualifiers, using words like should or must, those can be damaging. And also defining, like, what are you talking about? Because I mean, trauma for one person can be very different, can have a very different meaning to someone else.
Yeah.
Healing can be very different. Healing journey can be very, there's so many things. So context is always important.
Yeah. Context is important. Behavioral flexibility is important. Yeah. And remembering that people are going to perceive these simple statements, for example, based on their beliefs and experiences, not based on the beliefs and experiences of the speaker, right?
Yeah.
So we must, take how our communication will be received into account when we are communicating.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Cool.
I think that's it.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's it for today. So you can find me on Instagram at Alanna Banks Coaching, or you find out more about what I offer at my website, alannabanks.com. Also, if you haven't, check out my solo podcast called Cracked Open and, experience a hypnosis. And that's why I've created it. I've put it there so that you can experience it and find out what it's like, and then book an appointment with me. Let's do a custom.
Yeah. All of that.
Yeah. What's up with you, Ryan? What's happening in your life?
Just got this new office. Still doesn't have any furniture in it. So I'm waiting for my furniture to be delivered. Still teaching people coaching and NLP and stuff like that. People can find me on the web, ryanmontes.com, or on Instagram at ryanmontesnlp. And that's it.
Awesome. Okay. Cool. Well, we'll be talking to everybody next time.
Okay. Bye, everyone.